Welcome to Lemons to Millions with Dr. Ebony O, the podcast where life's lemons are transformed into extraordinary success. Discover how to turn challenges into opportunities and make millions from the lemons life throws your way. Get ready for inspiring conversations and actionable insights that empower you to conquer obstacles and achieve your dreams. Let's get started.
Well, good evening to all of our social media audience. What an amazing, what is this, Tuesday evening? And I am excited. I am Dr. Ebony O, CEO and founder of Lemons to Millions. And I'm excited to have the world-renowned phenomenon himself. I have been speaking to you all, just posting about this young man and all of the amazing accomplishments of Mr. Ashley Bell. And so here he is in the flesh joining us on tonight. And I am so excited to have him. Really quick, before I let you loose, Mr. Bell, I want to do just a soft introduction. For those in our social media world that may not know you. I don't know of many that can't know this name by now. It's definitely ringing bells. How about that in the finance world? But Mr. Ashley Bell is the co-founder and general counsel for the Black Bank Foundation and the overseer of a $250 million Black Bank Fund, where he has facilitated the largest minority bank and CDFI deal in sports history. As a former White House policy advisor for entrepreneurship and innovation, Mr. Bell has played a key role in the Paycheck Protection Program during the pandemic. Yes, you are hearing that right. The PPP, he had a lot to do with the success of that as well. He is the founder and the CEO of Ready Life, a fintech platform focused on shifting the mindset from advocacy to innovation. Through his work, Mr. Bell provides solutions to positively impact economic justice, emphasizing that credit is essential as water. Now, I absolutely love that. Credit is as essential as water. Good evening, Mr. Bell. How are you, sir?
I am fantastic and so excited to be with you and your audience tonight. Really appreciate the opportunity and looking forward to being at your conference a little later and look as a great sort of tune-up to our time together.
Absolutely. And so that conference that he is speaking of is our 2025 Lemons to Millions Business Finance Expo, where Mr. Bell will be joining our platform, our Lemons to Millions platform, as one of our keynotes. And so, Mr. Bell, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I would love to just dive in. We just talked about this Black Bank Fund. And so I want to ask, what inspired you to create or to even have that desire to spearhead and oversee a Black bank? What is the significance of that?
Well, that's a great question and spawns, out of my experience. I think for all the entrepreneurs that are out here, whatever endeavor you're on right now is birthed out of your lived experience. Whatever products or services you're offering are coming from someplace in your story that you feel could bring you to the moment you're in right now to offer that to the public. And this particular instance, it came out of the PPP. To be honest with you,
Oh, wow.
it was trying to. I mean, obviously, the PPP was wildly successful in the sense that it gave people hope and a way to get cash when they needed it. but in the very beginning, it was very chaotic. So the first round of
Absolutely.
PPP was very chaotic, and so for me, it was serving in that role was very. It was hard to figure out like how do we, the first PPP came out, you saw like the larger banks were throwing money out of the window left and right.
Absolutely.
Is everybody was getting their checks, but people of color weren't getting their checks. African Americans in particular, and so that became the first time in a Google search that Black people started Googling where's the closest Black bank near me,
That's
and
right.
it was out of the crucible of I have a bank that isn't Black owned that I can't get a hold of that isn't responding to me, even though I've been a customer for years, even though I put lots of money through
Yes.
this bank, and I can't get a call back. And in that, people are like, well, you know what? I'm just gonna get a bank that's in my community, and that rose for the first time in our generation a mass want to figure out where Black banks were, and when we found them we realized that they had been underfunded, undercapitalized, and did not have the technology to meet what was the greatest crisis economically of our time. And so, sitting from a government perspective, I realized that when crisis hit, we eventually, as a community, we kind of know to turn inward.
Yeah.
We don't know where to go. We go to each other. And in that moment, the banks that were built 100 years ago um, weren't what we needed them to be. And so
That's
my
right.
co-founder in the fund and all of my endeavors is obviously our dear sister and our leader, Dr. Bernice King, the
Yes.
youngest daughter of our leader, Martin Luther King Jr. And the night that her father was assassinated, we had 145 Black banks in our country. And the day
Wow.
COVID hit, we had 16. So that is when I realized that we had a
Wow.
problem and we needed a multifaceted way to address it.
Wow. I that information alone, 145 black owned banks, and then of course, so wow. And now you said we're looking at a roughly what, 15,
There was
15,
16 when
16,
COVID hit. Slight uptick since then,
16.
but when COVID hit, when we really needed them, it was 16.
Uh, spearheading this $250 million black black bank fund. What has been one of the greatest obstacles that you would say in getting our own African American community to buy into the vision that you foresee for us in the future?
A black bank, even though it's a highly, or any bank is highly regulated, it is a financial pillar of every community if you have one. But black banks struggle in our country because black people struggle many times.
Mm,
The reason that these black banks struggle is because many times they're in low to moderate income areas. We, as a community, see them as church banks most of the time, is where the building fund
there you
sits.
go.
But that's about it. And then like you'll go there if nothing else works. And so when you treat a black business like it's the last resort, you can only give you last resort type of experience, right? And
That's right.
so in that, to answer your questions, like for me, I think like how have we been treating black banks? I think honestly we've neglected them as a community.
Absolutely.
But in the grand scheme of things, they have some work to do when it comes to being able to compete. Every one of us that has a business, we have to be in our own markets, which are in the black
Yes.
community and outside the black community. There's not a business that's listening to this right now that doesn't see technology as a constant opportunity and challenge. Every black bank feels the same way, and so obviously when you're competing against a new world of financial services where you have many African Americans business owners, which 92% of them are sole entrepreneurs, many
Mm,
of which are using point of sale financial technology services like Cash App,
yes.
um, they treat that
Zale.
as their bank. They
Yes.
see that as their bank. And so if you don't have the technology, you're in a hole. And so what we try to do with the Black Bank Fund is recapitalize and bring more profits to black banks as an ecosystem so that they can begin to catch up on the technology front. And there's been the multi approach from us, from the federal government, and others. Because there was a study that came out from Stanford that said 64% of Black people said that they would leave the bank they're with right now and go to a
Mm.
Black bank if it had the same level of service. And so, how many times have you heard that about any Black business, right? Doesn't matter if it's a bank, doesn't matter if it's a barbershop, doesn't matter if it's, a plumber or engineer. If we have the same level of service, we will
Yeah.
usually choose our own.
That's fine. That's fine. I agree. I definitely agree. One of the things that, and as we're just talking about the African American community in general, when I was researching you and just learning a bit about you and your story, one of the things that I found very, very intriguing was how in depth you talk about your father. And there was a story that I recall you highlighting about your father. You talked about him being a very prominent figure and just in your life, and he was the ultimate husband and the ultimate provider. And then I think you said around the age of 45, his very corporate job
Yeah.
left the US
Yeah.
and went where to I think it was Mexico
Mexico.
or somewhere.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how that shifted your perspective as an entrepreneur and just knowing then that, hey, I have to do something different for my community and for my family to make sure that I'm never in this position.
Well, I thank you for bringing that up. I think, my father is still living. I just saw him not too long ago. And he was an example of what happens when you do everything right and the system lets you down.
Mm.
He grew up as son of a holiness deacon who was at church probably 3 4 times a week, did everything possible to live right, and you know um, went to Fort Valley State University as an HBCU. Met my mother the first day at a dance, and they stayed together for 52 years. So she went on to heaven. You're
Wow.
supposed to think about doing right and just showing up and being a man and loving your kids and your family. He did all that. But in his early years, when he was about my age now, a little older than I am now, um, he was one of the first Black execs at Johnson and Johnson. I
Wow.
remember, hearing stories from the groundskeepers that were Black at Johnson and Johnson's facility in Atlanta. An old man, Mr. Clyde. And I would tell you, as every Black man knows, you get most of your history if you live in a small neighborhood at the barbershop. So I heard this in the barbershop. So that's all I got. It's like, that's where I get my info. So Mr. Clyde was telling me that he said, actually, I remember the day your dad and one of his other friends got hired as the first Black execs at Johnson& and Johnson. And he
Wow.
said, we have been cutting the grass and we have been cleaning out the bathrooms, and all of us got to work early that day, and we stood outside the front of the gates to watch them get drove in and go take their seats on the third floor. He said, we were so proud because we've been cleaning those grounds for so long, and we never thought we would see African Americans in those positions. And at the time, that was doing affirmative action. That's when corporations were like, all right, well, we don't have any Black execs. We should make an overt effort to make that happen. So my dad
Wow.
did everything he was supposed to do. He was really good at what he did. And then one day, NAFTA hit in the 90s, and NAFTA took all the manufacturing to other places that were cheaper. And my dad was like, we either had a choice. We were either going to go be Mexican and live in Mexico, or we were going to stay in the United States and figure it out.
It
And,
looks like you
and
chose to stay here,
yeah,
right?
he chose the states. He chose his community, like we all would. We all would. He chose to live in his neighborhood that was predominantly founded by Black men and women that came out of Vietnam with the GI Bill, that bought homes there. One of the only newer Black middle class neighborhoods. He chose that. That was security. That's what he knew. And he decided to fight there and figure out how to make a living there. And I watched him have to completely start over. And this is the moment for me that really forced me to really see the world for what it really was. He did everything he was supposed
Mm.
to do. His company that gave him that opportunity also made him shut down the plant, and he had to tell all his friends that the
Wow.
dream and the road was over. And I asked him in the car. I was 14 years old, and I can tell you, my dad finally found a job after a long search, only making 10% of what he was making at Johnson and
Good.
Johnson. And I don't know who you are, where you are, but I guarantee if you got 10% in your pocket tomorrow, what you have today.
Listen,
It's a
it's
different
time to
world.
go. I might pack up and go to Mexico.
Exactly. Well, and you know
I'm
what? That's
out
what
of
my
here.
and that's what my mother was saying. She was like, luckily mom was a principal and she had a side job teaching people singing in church, and all her sisters sorors, the AKA, or figure it out. Like she was doing all the things to make it work to hold us together so he could figure it out. But he told me when I asked him, I said, "Dad, what do I have to do to not be in your position?" Which literally, I'm a couple of years from being exactly the same age he was at that time. He
Wow.
said, when that time comes, the keys to where you work, you have to own them. You have to own them if you want
Ah,
to control what happens to you, and you don't have to be here. So I
wow.
became a staunch believer that entrepreneurship is the greatest act of self-determination that a people can have collectively by supporting each other, and the entrepreneurs that take the risk. And I can sit here at this phase of my life where I quit, being a partner at the world's largest law firm,
Hmm.
so I could own the keys to the dreams that the people who support me and help me create.
Wow, I love that. And so, listen, Ashley, you facilitated major deals in the sports and finance,
Yeah.
industries. Um, what advice or what tips would you say are vital for entrepreneurs to adopt in securing partnerships and funding for those that are, that are after funding? One of the things that I am very excited about as it relates to our upcoming Limits to Millions Business Finance Expo is I'm ending this year with the seed that I'm sowing myself, along with a team of investors, of $10,000. And I'm going to allow entrepreneurs that are in attendance to pitch their business idea or product or service to our team. And so, what key strategies would you say are beneficial for today's entrepreneur to secure funding for their business?
That's a great question, and it's one that I spent a lot of time thinking about the best, most succinct way of saying it. And there's a couple lessons I'll share. One is um, what we have to embrace, especially that 92% that are solopreneurs, right? Which is a lot
Mhm.
of people in our
A
community,
lot.
is that there's a difference between owning a business and owning a job. And far too many times we will own a job and won't own a business.
Mhm.
And what I mean by owning a job is you have an enterprise that pays your bills, lets you take a vacation every now and again, get a new car when you feel like it, feel the freedom of entrepreneurship. But the difference in owning a business is that a business can be sold, it appreciates in value, and one day should not need you to be there.
Yeah,
Um, and I say that. So the second piece of that is you got to build it to sell it, even if you don't. But believe get tied up emotionally in our businesses. We never think about selling it. We're like, we're keeping this forever. I'm gonna pass this down, all that type of thing.
listen, I'm
But
the
I
queen
say
singer.
right, but I it's not say build it to sell it, because if you have in your mind from day one, or the day you determine that you want to have a real legitimate business that can be profitable, that can be invested in, you got to build it from day one, believing that somebody needs to not just hear you talk about the blood, sweat, and the tears that you put
That's
into your
right.
business. It has to be able to translate on paper. They have to be able to look at it and see your hard work in the numbers, see your hard work in the projections. We too many times are only stuck on the narrative that we can tell and the way we portray this in marketing. But is when the bank comes calling and they want to say, you come calling them looking for a loan, or you got a friend that wants to invest, they're going to look at those books, and those books have to tell your story without you saying a word. And
That's
if your
right.
books can't tell the story without you saying a word, and you got to fill in the blanks, there's other businesses that will be able to do that. And so by building it to sell it, having that in your mind, like, wow, I want to make sure I keep cash reserves. So when they look at my balance sheet, they know I got cash sitting there. Wow, I want to
That's
make absolutely sure that I'm separational from my business, so they don't look at my bank account and see tuition or something private school in there, anything weird that make you think like, oh, well, this is just a slush fund. It's not a business. You have to keep these things separate, so they know that you're actually running a business and not owning a job.
I love that. I love that, Ashley. One of the things, Ashley, I set out on this journey of pastoring, right, a few years
Hmm.
ago, and I joke about it, and I tell people I'm probably the last pastor that the Lord decided He was going to call, and I look, just a very different way of getting it done, right? And so one of the things I found myself having to pivot a little bit, and really wanted to do a little more teaching on just kingdom principles, but more so as it relates to kingdom wealth, and what that looked like. And so one of the things that I've been teaching on lately is just the law of reciprocity in general.
Mm.
And just a breakdown of that for me is just simply three things as it relates to our money, and that is to save it, to sow it, and then spend. And the spending part is more of the rewarding part of how you're rewarding yourself, but definitely the saving as that uh, global phenom in the business and banking world. How important, please tell the people how important you think that it is that we are to be saving. What is your emphasis and input on that, not just for the African American community, but for the people as a whole? Where should we be focusing our investments and our saving, and how vital is that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Financial literacy as a whole is incredibly important, especially as an entrepreneur. And so saving is a component of that. But here's the one thing that we sort of miss, especially when you're starting a new business. Many of our entrepreneurs, I like to say, are good at what they're good at. If they're a baker, they can throw down on some cakes. You're gonna go eat the cakes all the time. You would tell everybody she's got the best cakes out there. If a brother's fixes cars, he's like, I'm the best mechanic out here, can do it quickly. We're good at that. Engineer, you're a lawyer. We celebrate how great we can be with our excellence at what we do. But just because you're good at something specific that you can offer a product or service for does not mean you're good at business. And
That's
so
right.
you have to understand that difference and fill in that gap so you can spend more time being good at what you're good at, but make sure that your business being attended to while you're doing something that you're good at. So when we think about financial health, especially for your businesses, it all begins with understanding you can't do everything. You need to make sure you have an accountant. You make sure you know your lawyer. You need to make sure that you have someone helping professionally plan your wealth. It
Yeah.
is important because saving is great. And then the question is, all right, now that I've saved fifty
What do
thousand,
I
hundred
do
thousand
it?
dollars, now how are we going to invest it?
Yeah.
Don't wait on the cousin to come through with some great idea that you can't really that he just wants to take a loan out. That may happen. It may be a great idea, but what I'm telling you is that the likelihood
Yeah.
of you turning that 100,000 into a million on a long shot is not likely. So
That's right.
knowing that there are professionals out here that can help you, so you can focus on doing what you need to do. Financial literacy as a whole for entrepreneurs, we don't see it enough. And I'd
We
like
do.
to tell people, as you know, I used to be the regional administrator for the Southeast for the SBA. And I tell
Yes.
people all the time when I would speak, I would say, look, if you don't have an MBA, you better go see the SBA, because the SBA has got free business counseling that
That's right.
I won't even tell you is free. Reality is, there's not anybody watching us tonight that didn't pay taxes. And so if you pay taxes, these are called prepaid services,
That's
which
right.
means you've already paid for it.
You've
So if you've
already
already
paid.
paid for it, then you might as well go use it. So if you don't know what to do or how to get the right answer to this, pivot to a new market or enter a new market or prepare to, save to purchase more equipment or do better marketing, these small business development centers over the state, you paid for them, you need to use them. So when we talk about managing our money, financial literacy as a whole needs to be looked at as a large encompassing part of our life. Your financial health and your physical health need to be top priority.
Yes. Absolutely. So listen, let's pivot a little bit. You talked about your role briefly with the SBA. But Ashley, you are now this is written in history as well. One of the youngest, or the youngest. I think you were what, 27 years old when you ran for county commissioner.
Yeah, I was 26. Yeah, 26 when I got
26
elected.
years old.
Yeah.
Listen,
Yeah.
26 years old, running for county commissioner right here in Georgia. Tell us a little
Right.
bit about that experience and what that career move did for, how that opened up your horizons.
Yeah. So that was a critical in my life. I was a young lawyer. I just gotten out of law school, a baby lawyer. Like barred, the ink on my bar license was still wet type lawyer. And I really believe that I had something to offer my community. To be honest with you, at 26, you don't know much about much. And I'll be, just to be straight up, when I look at who my parents were and I talk about them all the time, I think at the end of the day, my mother was one of the first teachers to integrated schools in our area. My father was from the area for forever. Felt like a lot older for me, and they were like, "Look, if he I would just go tell his mama on him and get him back in line." So I think that was a
That's
little bit
right.
of it, but I will say a lot of it was the fact that, and this is the part I want to use as a life lesson for a lot of people that I hope we can kind of take away tonight. Um, you're at your most idealistic when you're really young. You still believe that everything is possible. You're not jaded by rejection as much as you are later.
Yes.
You still believe that everything is possible, and people who
Yes.
tell you otherwise don't make sense.
That's right.
In business, when you're 39, 49, 59, sometimes you got to sit back and have a conversation with your 29-year-old self, with your 21-year-old self,
With
and
your
think about how
10-year-old self.
yeah, exactly, how
I
you
call
saw
it
the world.
childlike faith, Mr. Bell.
That's
I
it.
call it
That's
childlike
right.
faith.
Childlike faith, absolutely. Me, I was still young enough to where I still believed that the government could be better and people. And I still believe that. But I know in my dark days, in my hard times, I look back at those moments and I renew my faith because
Yeah.
I know that it makes no sense for me to be in that position unless God meant for me to be in that position. He made a way for me to be in that position, and so I had a reason to be there, and I deserve to be there. And in that, it helped me. I don't think I could have been as effective as I was during COVID and otherwise in the White House if I
Mhm.
didn't spend time in the county courthouse as a lawyer and as a commissioner, learning the basics and fundamentals of service.
Yes.
And so I'm glad it happened. I'm glad I did it, and I'm fortunate that experience young in my life was able to test me in ways to prepare me for what was to come.
Absolutely. And so now we're pretty much our global ecosystem. It dips, it increases, it dips. We see various things. Um, if I was to say to you right now, and this is speaking to just your journey in general, when life throws you lemons, make millions. What would you say to that struggling entrepreneur that is looking for some keywords from Ashley Bell? When life
Yeah,
throws you lemons, make millions.
you know, every major breakthrough I've had in my life, in my career, has been on the other side of a failure, of a setback. And many times I know that when a curveball comes and I see a brick wall, I take it as a sign from God that I need to celebrate and look another direction. Because I'm gonna tell you, you're not a real entrepreneur until you really pivoted. Like until you something so long one way and decided that one way is where you got to go. And even
Yes,
though you're so tied to that one way, it's so embedded in you that this is what I said I was going to do and how I said I was going to do it, until you able to just find that peace and say, all right, for me, I need to just be be thoughtful, and hopefully have around you three people who love you and who care about you, who don't want anything from you but to see you succeed. That's important.
Wow.
And if those people can be around you, you'll pivot. And that pivot, I tell anybody before I invest in their business, I don't want to hear your success. I want to know how you pivoted. Because
That's
the
right.
true tale of an entrepreneur is when it didn't go right, when that one contract you had that you thought would last forever ends. What did you
Woo.
do? What did you
Yes.
do? And when the money runs out and you sitting here looking at payroll and it's due on Friday, you got to think about how you're gonna make
Yes.
it work. What did you do?
Yes. What did you do?
It is in those moments where you're truly become the leader of an enterprise and something that should be invested in. And that is why I think that for me, um, my biggest pivots and my biggest successes, especially even with, I talk about Ready Life. When Ready Life was, we made a major pivot, but God knows we did it the right way. We just got stuck with a situation where all the banks that we were using for our platform all went out of business.
No.
All the banks went out of business. So you know what we did? We went and bought a bank because that's what you got to do. You can't sit here and get mad that your banks you're working with don't go out of business. You go buy another. You go buy your own bank,
Listen.
and you say, you know what we're not
that-
going to do is sit here and rely on
That's
somebody
it.
else.
Buy your
To
own
go
bank.
do it. Right?
Buy your
And,
own bank.
if people say like, how do you do that? It's like, look, at the end of the day, you do that. You have your circle of everything. Have around you that just don't cheer you on when you have a failure, or pat you on the back and say it's going to be okay. But you need people around you who not only pray for you, but they will push you and they will tell you when you're going direction and be there to help you go in direction. Being an entrepreneur, and especially if you call yourself president, chairman, CEO, that is a lonely place to be. There's nobody else to talk to about key decisions. I will not ever start a business without a co-founder or a partner. I'm
Yes.
blessed that Dr. Bernice King is my co-founder on most of my
Yes.
businesses. I fully believe, if you are a man in business, if you don't have a strong woman around you in business to keep your head balanced, you probably are doing yourself a disservice.
Wow.
I think we do better when we are balanced. When you have someone, Dr. King will call me in a minute and just, let me know exactly what she's thinking and not afraid to do it. The God bless her for it, because we all need it, right? So,
That's right.
so, so I'm like, if you don't have somebody in your life that can do that, get one, because I think that also helps you when those lemons come, to give
Yeah.
you that encouragement, but also give you that you're not in this by yourself.
You're not in it by yourself. I love that. And so, listen, there are so many individuals that have joined us, and they may have learned about you for the first time, and learned about this initiative. This, that we have good ideas, and then I believe that there's God ideas, and I
Mhm.
definitely believe that you have a God idea
Thank
that
you.
you're embarking upon. Absolutely, and you're at the finish line, and
Finish line.
so we talked about it a little bit before we came on the live, but I want to publicly commend you for this amazing accomplishment. I was speaking with my husband in regards to you a little earlier before I jumped on, and one of the first things that came out of his mouth was that, hey, we're going to move XYZ to his bank as soon as he's ready. And so,
Thank you.
I just want to
Thank you.
let you know that there's a little African American couple hiding in a corner over here rooting for you,
No, I
because
thank
you
you.
are
Mm,
absolutely, you are provoking us to do the same. One of the same goals that I have is to own my own financial institution. And so
yes.
to be able to look at you and
Yes.
then be connected, for you to say yes to join the Lemons to Millions platform and say, hey, yes, I'm going to bring my resources to the table. I just
Mhm.
want to let you know that I am beyond grateful. And I thank you so, so much for just the opportunity to know someone of your caliber. Tonight's live stream has really, and I'm not just saying this, to put on, but I want to let you know that tonight's live stream, I was already anticipating it. I was already anticipating the knowledge, the wisdom that I knew that you would pour. But this has catapulted my faith.
Mm,
to another level as well.
mm,
And I am believing God. I came in into 2025 proclaiming, declaring, and decreeing that this would be my year of mega manifest
mm.
miracles. And so tonight's live stream let me know that I am headed in the right direction. And I just want to say thank you.
Amen. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. And so listen, we're gonna end this. I don't want to take up any more of your time than we have to. There are a few questions here. Monica Pope says, would you say being in politics helped shape your career? And if so, would you recommend it to others?
That's a great question. And my dear brother Jones, who's on the board of one of my companies, and I talk about this all the time. Um, you know, uh, yes and no. So, in one hand, in our community, the Black community, if you talk good and you're smart and you got a heart for the people like to make you a politician or a pastor. Let's just say one of the two. You're gonna go one way or the
I
other.
probably should
And
have went politician then.
so, but I will say this: we are, in the grand scheme of things, our talent is overrepresented in politics as a
Mm,
people. We should have more scientists. We should have more bankers. We should have a whole lot more other things, but because we are a people that many times are live in underserved communities and are oppressed by systems that have been built to keep us in the positions we're in, it's inherently in us when we see a vehicle to create change that politics will draw us. So it's not a bad thing, but how you use your time in politics is what's critical. So what politics does is gives you a skill set that I believe that we don't transfer over as neatly into the venture capital world. Venture capital means you start a company with somebody else's money and you create money, right? That's basically what it means.
absolutely.
Politicians sustain their political careers off somebody else's money. Politicians spend hours every month calling somebody trying to get them to give them money to stay in office. That particular skill, and those people who have enough money to give, think about it. Nobody's giving you $1,000 to run for office unless they got many more than $1,000
That's
to
right.
run for. So that is also who should be investing in your business when you leave politics. And so
Mm,
that is what I began to understand, is that as my offices that I began to support got bigger, the people who write checks got bigger. The people who had more resources got bigger because there was more at stake. And so those people who I saw as I climbed the ladder in politics, as their resources got bigger because the stakes got bigger, also join my cap table, which means the people who are on the list of your investors later in life.
oh,
So
that's good.
it puts
That's
you in a position to be around people who are investing in you. And please believe this: when it comes to venture capital and somebody investing in you to start a company with an idea without your own money, most of the time, nobody's investing in your business. Nobody's investing in your idea. They're
yeah.
investing in you.
And you.
And you. They look at you and they got to figure out, can this person figure out how to pivot when it goes bad? That's
That's
really what it
right.
comes down to.
Look,
Because it's going to
can I
happen.
get a return on my
Can I get a
investment?
return? When it happens, can they figure it out how to make sure we can get a return? And so the business is one thing, but they also know the people who are driven, who are unstoppable, will remain purpose driven, and you will succeed. So politics does put you in a position to understand systems. And to be around people who will invest in you. So by running for office, treat that as your first time, in venture capital. They're investing in you. You just running for office, but those same people are the people you can tap into later in your career when you want to start your first business.
I love that. I love that. Can they get a return on their investment? If you are watching, just put it in the comments. Just put this in the comments. Say, I'm bankable. I'm
That's right.
bankable. Listen, they
That's right.
can bank on me.
They can bank
And
on
so
me. That's right.
absolutely. And so listen, looking ahead, I want you, first of all, to be able to share where they can find you, because they're going to be looking, money answers
Sure.
all things. And
That's
so
very
when
true.
there is, yeah,
You
when
know,
there's an
I I
individual,
I I personally just want to say, for everybody out there, if I can ever be a resource, my network will try to get you connected to people who could be helpful. You can find me on LinkedIn at Ashley Bell.
yes,
You can find me on Instagram, Ashley D Bell, and all other forms, Ashley D Bell, middle initial D. Ready Life is the same. You can find at Ready Life US, and the bank that is coming. that we believe will be the beginning of a movement that will reset the table in our
Woo!
country financially when it comes to us having access to power and access to resources, is a bank that we're buying. We are doing something nobody's ever done before. We are Black folks buying a white bank. It has never happened in American history. We're going to the whitest place possible with the most money possible, and we're going to
There
buy a
we go.
bank in the neighborhood. And we're saying, look, we as a people deserve to have the opportunity to do what capitalism has done for everybody else. People, know that capitalism works. We just got to prove it can work for everybody. And to make
That's
it
right.
work for everybody, we got to have the institutions that
That's right.
create the velocity that we talked about credit being like water in the beginning. Credit is
Mm-hmm.
like water because where credit flows, opportunity grows. If you don't see
Oh,
credit flowing, there's nothing growing. And who is
wow.
the who pushes out credit? That is the banks that push
Oh,
out the
that's
credit.
good, Ashley.
So
Now
we
that's
need the
good.
wells of opportunity in our community, and that's why we bought this bank, and that's why we renamed it Redemption.
I love it. And so, what do you, and this is the last question, what would you like for your legacy to be in the finance industry?
I'm fortunate enough to uh, have a lot of good people around me. I understand that my time in this story is but a second. The King said it best, and we're approaching Dr. King's father's birthday. That the
Yeah.
arc of the moral universe is long, but
Mm,
it bends towards justice. And I believe that his words that he spoke about before he was assassinated was to pivot to this economic revolution that our country
that's
needed.
right. That's,
And we're fighting a fight that's been fought a long time. And I hope that my support of Dr. King, his daughter, that I can continue his legacy of pushing
yeah.
forward an economic agenda that is fair and equitable for all people. And we can
Commendable. Yeah.
produce businesses led by people of color that can bring wealth to all people, but be led by people of color. And that we can redefine the face of ownership in America. And if we can do that, if we can look back and at this time and say that Black people could own a bank anywhere. Because if anybody can come in our neighborhood and own anything, then the same should be true the other way around. We should be able to
That's
own
right.
anything anywhere.
That's right.
And that can't happen until we become unafraid to try, to fail, to succeed. I thank God. I raised over $80 million of capital in the last 18 months to try to break
Right.
through.
Yeah.
Can happen unless you truly believe that where we are is not where we need to be, and you have faith that where we're going we will be led there. And so just the faith is everything, and everybody around you who's supposed to be with you along this journey they'll show up, and they'll be
That's
there, and you'll
that's
get there.
That's it. Thank you so much. Listen, guys, you've heard it right here on Lemons to Millions. We are watching not just history in the making, but we are watching God catapult one of our own to a level of financial wealth and stability, and not just for himself and for his own family, but the impact that he's getting ready to make in our community. And again, it's commendable. Mr. Ashley Bell, thank you for joining the platform.
Absolutely.
I'm excited. I cannot wait for our upcoming Limits to Millions Business Finance Expo. And for all of you that are watching and that will watch the replay, all you have to do is type in lemons, and that will get you 50% off. That's just for today and tomorrow, 50% off of your Lemons to Millions Business Finance Expo pass. And so you will put in that passcode lemons, and there you have it. Mr. Bell, tonight has been phenomenal. I'm excited to let you loose. I know, live stream is different. I'm ready to give you a mic and let the pastor come out of it. But thank you so much
Well,
for
thank you.
joining us. Thank you
I
so
appreciate you, and thank you for everybody that tuned in tonight. Till we meet again, I'll see you at the Limits to Millions conference.
That's it, guys. You've heard it right here. You all have a blessed night. And don't forget that when life throws you lemons, you make millions.
Thank you for listening to the Lemons to Millions podcast with Dr. Ebony O. To stay updated and connected, follow Dr. Ebony O on social media. And remember, when life throws you lemons, make millions.